Welcome to Purpose Driven Wealth, the podcast show for empowered investors. I'm your host, Mo Bina. Today on the show, we have Kim Daly. Kim has spent the last 20 years helping people achieve financial freedom by enabling them to find the perfect franchise opportunities. Her skill for matching a client's background, interests, skills, finances, and life goals to the ideal opportunity has made her one of the top franchise consultants in the country. Today, we're here to gain insights into what can seem like a daunting process, deciding on the perfect franchise to enable you to gain financial freedom. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mo. I'm happy to be here today.
So let's start with how you got into franchising. How did this all start?
Yeah. So, in our industry, Mo, we often say, how did franchising find you? Like nobody really starts, it's not like I woke up one day and said, oh yeah, I can't wait to go be a franchise consultant, right? Like nobody said that. So I actually, my story, it's not that interesting. I answered a classified ad in the newspaper, like in between medical school and, college and medical school. And it was for a franchise consulting company, not the one I'm part of now, but it literally changed my life. It was a job that I fell in love with from go. They offered me a 1-year position. I delayed medical school, and obviously I never went back, which my father said would happen, but I was like so adamant that it wouldn't happen. But I found a place where people help people. People wake up every day to live their dreams. We're helping other people live their dreams. I mean, what was not to like? The entrepreneur in me was born. I was 25 years old when I broke off and started my first company after that, and I've never looked back. So franchising is an awesome opportunity. The industry has completely changed my life. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do, because I believe it can help anybody that really has the desire to own their cash flow, their income, their future, build assets, enjoy tax advantages, all the things that your audience, real estate investors, are always looking for.
Oh, beautifully said. And were you always kind of like entrepreneurship minded, or were you kind of always had the mindset of an entrepreneur, or did that kind of morph into over time once you kind of got into this path of, franchising?
Okay, so that's a really great question. So, there's a statistic out there that children of entrepreneurs go on to become entrepreneurs at some statistically higher rate than non-entrepreneurial families. And my dad was an entrepreneur, so probably that. And he would probably say that I've been the boss of me since I was 2 years old. I say I'm unemployable. He's like, Kimberly, you've always been unemployable. So there's that, Mo. Let's be real. But maybe so. I mean, I was a camp counselor when I was in college, and I saw a better opportunity than was being offered to some of these older teenage kids. And I did write a business plan. I presented it to the executive director of the YMCA where I live and sold him on my idea to fund it, and so that I could start that camp. And I started that when I was 19 years old. I was dating somebody who was a competitive martial artist, and he started training me in boxing drills, which I had never done. And this was like before like cardio kickboxing was a thing. And again, I was like, we could sell this, So we rented the aerobics studio in our gym a couple nights a week and started hosting classes, which turned into 5 nights a week, which turned into it's a standalone business. And so I think I've always sort of had it in me to risk and to try new things. But I'm 100% sure right now at 49 years old that I am completely unemployable, as my dad would say. And I will say this, Mo, before 2020, I know that I'll always own my future. I'll never be employed by anybody. But I don't know that I fully was like, oh, it'll always be a franchise business. But when I watched how people came together and strong leadership in franchises that are backed by private equity that had the money to be able to adapt, to pivot, to get in there and like staff up and help their franchisees get out of that the fetal position that we were sort of all in, whether it be, emotionally or even physically. How do we reopen our doors safely and still make money? when I watched those adaptations, I literally sat here in my chair, just like in awe. I mean, not one of the franchisors that I work with went bankrupt in 2020. I work with one of the largest fitness franchisors in the world that even through COVID fitness, they have not one permanent closure and not one failure coming out of 2020, 2021. So I would say that at this point in my life, I know I'm always going to be self-employed. And I'm pretty certain I'll probably always invest in franchise businesses from this time forward if it's a business.
Oh, those are great points. And, you kind of touched upon like young kids and taking risks. And I went to college, I have a master's degree. And, that was always taught to me. And I think a lot of people still believe that that is the least risky thing to do, is to go to college and get a degree. But then when you start to look at what's going on and what has been going on for many years now with the cost of college or university education, and you start to wonder, like, are you taking a bigger risk by going to school and then coming out with like six figures of debt, and then all of a sudden that
Okay,
debt
this
follows you around
conversation is
everywhere,
not for our children. No, let's say that.
Yeah.
Never get them to graduate from high school. But I hear you. No, I hear you.
Yeah. And you got to wonder, like, are you just better off? And I've heard a number of entrepreneurs speak along the lines of, why go and for example, why go to college and get an MBA? You're going to go to college and get an MBA, and you're going to spend how much money to get an MBA? Why don't you just use that money and go out there and do something with it? The real world of being an entrepreneur is starting a business, how to hire people, how to find talent. And if you don't have a skill set, you go and you hire someone who has it. And so there's a lot of interesting, and we can go, that's a whole nother discussion in itself, but it was beautiful to hear you kind of talk about kids and taking risks, because the way I see it more and more is, I actually think that kids, a lot of them, young kids, are taking risks by going to college and getting degrees, in certain fields that, may not necessarily pan out into like careers that are going to give them jobs, that are going to pay enough to even pay back their student loans in a reasonable amount of time.
And not to mention stability, and I mean, then you factor in quality of life once our children, have their own children, and, all the reasons that we're pursuing something different, because we're looking for more passion, because we want that stability. We want that income that somebody else isn't telling us when we have to show up and what we get paid, like that glass ceiling. I mean, all the reasons that drive us, I think. I mean, I spend so much time talking to my two teenage boys about ownership. I do not want them to be employed. I want them, I mean, I think they have to be employed at some point in their life, like as teenagers, because I think they have to learn sort of work ethic and how, what it's like to be managed by somebody else, to then kind of kick in that internal drive to where they're like, I want to do this for myself. But the best laid plans of every parent, though, always go wrong if you're too adamant about what your kids are going to do. So you got to leave it a little high level. But I mean, I really do hope that my kids follow their own entrepreneurial path, that I certainly would support and go into ventures with them.
Yeah, nice. Um, you mentioned how, the franchises that you've been involved in, like none of them went bankrupt during like COVID. And so why is franchising a safe investment, even in uncertain times, or even during conditions of bad economic conditions?
Yeah. So not every franchise out there is created equal, Mo. So first, let's, qualify about what I'm about to say. And this is why the Daily Coach has a business, right? This is what I do for people, is I'm bringing 20 years of relationship and experiences in the industry to match people with the best of the best franchisors that are out there. So, but the reason in general, I think that franchising is a good investment, a safer investment. Number one, when you compare it to entrepreneurship, we're buying down the learning curve of starting a business. So as a franchise owner, you're still starting your own business, but it's the idea that you're starting a business with the support and training and proven toolbox of other people. So an entrepreneur has to go out there and figure out who the customer is and what the customer is going to respond to in terms of marketing and where to spend those marketing dollars and how many marketing dollars, and then how long will it take to be in the market doing this to produce a cash flowing return. And it's somewhere during all of those assumptions that 90% of small businesses fail. So in a franchise business where an owner comes fully prepared with an understanding of who the customer is and what they're going to respond to, and a proven marketing plan and where to spend the money and how much money and how long it's going to take, then we can come fully prepared financially and even with our expectations. And then we can get trained so we don't have to have experience in the business. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, they build a business around their center of influence or something they know about or something they're inventing. And we have to have entrepreneurs, number one, because we would never have new franchise businesses, right? All franchise businesses start out as entrepreneurial adventures. But I always say that entrepreneurs are in love with their business. Franchisees are in love with what their business affords, which often is money and quality of life. This idea that as the owner of the business in a franchise, you can work on your business rather than in your business. So you can come in as the CEO, you can train and learn the business, or the point you made earlier, you can hire to the experience of the business. So we do not need widget experts. We do not need you to have prior industry experience in almost every franchise business for you to go on and become rookie of the year or the number one franchisee in the system. What we need from people is money. It's an investment. But in terms of skills, we need competitive drive. We need leadership skills. We need organizational skills, right? So it's the same skills that would make a W-2 employee successful in their W-2 career, right? Those people that are running operations for other people, that are driving business by leading teams, that are running, managing P&Ls. It's all the same skills. It's just waking it up and doing it for yourself, where now you get to fully benefit from the effort you're putting in. You get to make the money that you want to make. You get to enjoy the tax savings. You get to build that equity. And that's an important piece, because a lot of people think that a franchise is not really yours. Like you don't really own it. And that's a myth. It's not true. It's your business to make or break. The franchisor is just providing the toolkit, the proven business plan and the toolkit with the marketing, the training, and the technology and the support. But ultimately, then it's up to the owner to show up and to do the work and to create an outcome. And that's why it's yours to make or break. And then it's yours to sell at the end.
Well, great points. And I love what you just said about buying down the learning curve. And the same skill set that would make a W-2 employee valuable in his or her workplace or job are the same skills that you would need to be successful as a franchisee. And so obviously you're going to take responsibility, right? It's not going to be a 9 to 5 type thing. But if you have the drive, you've got the leadership and the organizational skills that you talked about, then, and you've bought down in a way that learning curve that totally, helps to take you to another level. And
Yeah.
like you said, in taking control of your life,
Yeah.
and
And
your
not
freedom.
everybody has to start out as a full-time owner in a franchise, which again sets it apart from a lot of other business investments, because you can come into a franchise and step into a proven brand with that proven track record, with the systems that help you manage the business. We have in franchising what we call a semi-absentee owner. And this is where an owner could come in with 10 to 15 hours a week, simply as the CEO working on their business rather than in their business, right? So you're going to hire to the experience of the business. For example, let's say that you are a Massage Envy franchise owner. I don't need a physical therapist. A massage therapist to own a Massage Envy. I need somebody who can focus on building a team of massage therapists, somebody who can focus on the customer experience and the marketing to make sure that when the doors open, customers are coming in, somebody who can be managing the financials and the strategy. There's a strategic growth plan usually to scaling a business, to really creating that wealth. Because just like in real estate, the wealth is not going to be created from one. It's always created through scale, right? So in a business, we're talking about scale using people, equipment, or real estate, because you can use the location too in a business. So, and they all have pluses and minuses. One's not better than the other. They're used by different investors for different purposes with different time commitments and for different outcomes. And again, I don't expect a candidate to have all the answers and to know exactly what they're looking for. When they come to me, they can say, "Hey, Kim, I have the dream to learn about franchising. Teach me." And that's what I'm here to do. My services are free. Candidates never pay me any money. So there's really no risk. You're leveraging, like I said, 20 years of experience, relationship, because ultimately, one thing I haven't said is when you invest in a franchise, ultimately, you are not buying a brand or a widget. You are buying leadership. And this is why franchising is better in an uncertain time. If you're partnered with the right people, and that's an if that's why you work with someone like me who can bring you the people, that the franchisors that really do care about your success. They really do want your you to be successful. They want to provide the tools and ongoing research and development to keep improving the brand, to keep improving your opportunity. They're hyper focused on the average unit volumes, because they know that if they can help you drive up your average unit volume so you're making more money, then those royalty dollars that you're flowing back to them will be more, right? You want franchisors that are bold enough to say, "Hey, we are in the royalty business." And that's not a bad thing. We care about your average unit volume, because when you make more money, then we get to make more money. You want a franchisor that says that. And that's what I do, is match people to those franchisors. So, yeah.
I knew a friend who owned a franchise, and he he eventually got out of it, but he told me like he felt like he was always being squeezed. Um, and he felt like, I have to buy my napkins and my cups and my this and my that, and he felt like he was always being squeezed. And and I'm not going to name the company, but it's it there. It seems like from what you're saying that there are, let's say, operations out there. There are companies out there that they see it as an abundance, type of mindset or mentality, where it's like you said, we want you as the franchisee to do well, because you do well, you continue to do well, then of course, then we're making money off of royalties, right? And maybe my question in all this is, are there maybe some companies that maybe don't necessarily have that mindset, with their
I
franchisees?
love that you're bringing this up. So if Kim Daly is anything, she is a myth buster in franchising. So what I would say to your poor former franchisee friend is perhaps it's a misunderstanding of how franchising works. So if a franchisor does not have you buy, if let's say you're in a restaurant, it sounds like, and you're not buying your paper products and everything from the same vendor, number one, if there is a number one, well, let's start here. Number one, what is a brand? A brand is a consistent consumer experience, right? How does the franchisor control the consumer experience when every restaurant is independently owned and operated? The way they control it is with a very tight franchise disclosure document, which is the document that the Federal Trade Commission mandates that a business operating as a franchise must produce. And so in this franchise disclosure document is where it would say you have to buy your napkins and your paper products and everything from our vendors. So the way that they control that consumer experience. So look, people come to me today and they're like, "Wow, I would love to own the Chick-fil-A," because they see the line out the door no matter when they drive by Chick-fil-A, right? But that's because for the last 20 years or however long Chick-fil-A has been out there, The pioneering franchisees have been in their store executing to perfection an experience that's been delivered and communicated consistently to the consumer. So now when people look at it, they're like, wow, look at Chick-fil-A. That didn't happen overnight. It happened by careful execution and a very tight FDD, franchise disclosure document, where we're going to do this all exactly the same way. Now, the other thing about when the franchisor has vendors, it also can be for supply chain. So sometimes the franchisors will own those vendors, not because they just want to make money from it. Like that's the scarcity mentality view. Think of it from the abundant view. They want to be able to control it so that you can always have your paper and your napkins, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. What I'm thinking is that I don't know this person, but that it was a business that had very slim margins. And in his perception, these, by buying these things, these additional things from the franchisor, it made him feel like if he could go do it somewhere else, he could squeeze out another 1 or 2%, which would mean more money to him. So perhaps it was either the wrong business for his expectations, or perhaps it was his understanding of what kind of money could be made in that business. Maybe there's a different business that doesn't have so many expenses, that has greater revenue potential, has bigger margins, where we're not scraping by and having to worry about an extra, percent here or an extra percent here, because we have a big fat healthy margin over here. And so again, this is part of why I have a business. And sometimes, Mo, it's just that people get into a franchise, they don't work with someone like me, and their expectations are not set properly from the beginning. And if it's a rapidly growing franchise and it goes on to become a really big company, like big corporate America, and you're just a number, you don't have a personal relationship, that also can feel bad. Look, people call me every day trying to break free from corporate America. And if they're like, I hate big corporate America, I'm not going to go send them over to Subway. That's big corporate America, right? Like I want to lead them to a younger company that has financial stability and a track record of stability, but where maybe the owner has direct contact with the CEO of the franchise or the founder of the franchise even. Right? Where you get to personally develop a relationship and that franchisor knows you by name. Maybe that's what was missing in this scenario, a personal relationship that helped this guy understand why the franchisor did things certain way. And maybe also what was missing in this particular franchise was upside. Like, what was the franchisor doing to drive the opportunity forward? Maybe it was that the business was stale, right? And so every little margin counted. And then when the franchisor wasn't doing their part in this partnership to keep driving, maybe bringing in new food products or creating an opportunity for the franchisee to make more money somehow, it just felt unbalanced over time. It's really hard to say without bringing your friend on, but wouldn't that be fun to do a 3-way and like hash it out on recording? That would be so, I would love it, because you know what? Look, everybody that knows me knows I am perpetually positive. I will always spin it to positive, and I am very pro franchisor, because I've stood here for 20 years as a franchise consultant, watching franchisees and watching franchisors. I've seen how what they say and what they say, and and I'm like in the middle, and I can tell like what the truth is because I'm exposed to both sides. So I can help you see the franchisor's perspective, which oftentimes, look, it's hard to sometimes put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I would love to do that. And I would love to be challenged on it, and the challenging thing is that not all franchisors are created equal. And some franchisors do ruin it for the good ones by being schmucks, and by just, taking everything they can from their franchisees and not offering enough, so that teeter-totter is totally unbalanced from the beginning. But I can tell you in my personal experience, that's not the world that I play in.
Oh, well said. Well said. And you're right. His the assessment of what I took from the issues that he had at the time were that the margins were slim, and you brought that up. And as soon as you said it, I was like, that was one of the issues he had. And that's why when the margins were slim, then you start to look at, well, what's eating into my margins, right? Like when you see the cost of like I said, buying, napkins and cups and whatnot. And you're right. You want to build a consistent brand and a consistent product, that's been formulated, basically like a formula, right? That's been formulated over like years or decades or more. And essentially you start to then nitpick like, oh, well, what's eating in my margins and why am I just, barely like, breaking even? And but that kind of leads to like a question I want to ask you about. So go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
As the business coach in that scenario, what I'd also say based on that setup is, how about we focus on what you can control, which is driving revenue, and let go of what you can't control, which is where you have to buy your paper products from. Because that's another, as a business coach, that's another like paradigm shift that can take somebody from wanting to sue a franchisor to the minute I say, okay, let go of what you could never control, and let's put all of your time and energy into what you can control. And you know what happens, Mo? When people start focusing on what they can control, guess what happens to their attitude? It's like teaching a kid how to ride a bike, right? When the kid can't ride the bike, they're like, "Don't let go." I have boys, right? So, "Don't let go, mommy, don't let go," right? But you know that if they can just figure out how to balance that bike between their legs, you're never going to be able to get them off the bike, right? So you're determined, but until they get there, they're super scared. Nobody likes feeling out of control. Business owners are no different than little kids learning to ride a bike. So, but if you're always focused on what was never yours to control, really, and instead of focusing on how can I, let's say that it was a Subway, how can I make more subs? Can I go out and sign up school lunches? Can I go into corporations and say every Tuesday and Thursday we're going to do a special deal? Like, can you drive more revenue this way, right? Maybe those little things that you could never control wouldn't matter so much. But at the end of all of that, I will tell you that as one of America's top franchise consultants, you have to beg me to show you food. So the reason I don't show people food is for this very conversation. The margins are too slim. And the average person who's trying to come to the idea of owning a business, it's too hard. There are businesses out there where after all of your cost of goods are paid, you might have a 70% gross profit margin or a 60% or a 40%. That is an infinitely easier scenario to make money in as a new business owner trying to manage everything and get up the learning curve than one where you can never escape the expenses of the meat, the bread, and the human to make it, right? When you have a business that's wrapped in a membership, this is my sweet spot. Anything that has the reoccurring, predictable, scalable revenue of a membership, like it doesn't have to just be a gym, even though I love the gym, but like it could be anything. You can look at, okay, my fixed costs will be covered with X number of members. And then as you 2x it, 3x it, 10x your membership, what happens to your fixed costs? Well, nothing. They stay the same, right? So, but what happens to your bottom line? What happens to your bottom line is it grows exponentially. And so this becomes an infinitely easier way to build wealth than a business like food or retail, where for every widget or sandwich you sell, you always have a cost of good, and in the restaurant business, the human to make that food. And that's why the margins are just, and if let's say that you buy wrong, you buy the wrong food that nobody's eating, or in a retail store, you inventory things that nobody ends up buying. It's a sunk cost. So anything service oriented that has that higher, naturally has a higher margin, it's an easier way for people to see the potential and to feel more in control, right? And then ultimately I think to be happier with their decision to become a business owner.
Great points. Great points. And one of the things that you said, which was kind of at least something that I kind of had a misperception about, is getting involved in franchises where you actually can have a relationship with the original founder or CEO. Most people think that, franchises are they get so big, or by the time you can actually own be a franchisee, that it's gotten so big that you're going to be disconnected from the people at the very top. And it sounds like that is not the case at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, that really speaks to when I'm interviewing people and trying to figure out what kind of companies to bring to them. We talk about like where in the life cycle of the brand do you want to insert yourself, right? And really that really comes back to what are your goals. So if you're looking to build and sell something in a shorter amount of time, the more pioneering side is going to be more lucrative than the, kind of the legacy side. But if you're not a huge risk taker, if you're more conservative and you want there to be a track record and data and other franchisees that can validate the story to you, then you kind of have to be more, at least at the halfway mark, at like 100 units or more. But if you have the pioneering spirit or the desire to come in and have that first to market advantage, which I would say is probably the greatest advantage. If your brand goes on to become the next big American brand, you came in, carved out the best demographics, have the best locations, the most long-term locations by the time the world wakes up, when there's no other locations left to sell in your area. And now your members or your clients are the ones saying, hey, I wish I knew about this sooner. I'd love to own one. You can, raise your hand and say, well, you can buy mine. And that's when you see franchise owners exiting with 6, 7, 8 multiples, right, of their store. Those businesses aren't going to hold on to those kind of multiples, right? It's just there's a moment in time at a peak of a brand awareness before there's tons of competition, especially if it's something new, right, to where you have that exit moment. We saw it happen with Massage Envy. We saw it happen with Planet Fitness. I've seen those runs. And so again, my consulting service is to help you think through, what are you using this business for? What kind of investor are you? There's all kinds of investments out there for totally pioneering people and for totally, conservative thinkers. There's both. I've worked with geologists, right? Geologists are amazing because they're so highly specialized they're so highly trained, and they typically are very passionate about what they do. But the ones I've worked with are like tied to oil and gas, right? So when the oil and gas market is good, they have jobs. When the oil and gas market is not good, they don't have jobs, right? So they've come to me looking for some stability, but they don't want to give up that profession. To the point you were making about an MBA, if you have a big degree that helps you make more money in corporate America and you like that, you don't have to give it up to build over here. That's what semi-absentee ownership is all about. But like I have a couple of these geologist people, they're now Supercuts franchise owners. Like Supercuts, really? But yeah, but think about it. Supercuts is one of those brands. I mean, it's a legacy brand. Like no matter what happens in the world, we need a haircut, right? And if the economy gets tight, we really want a cheap haircut. And it's the door beside the front door of Walmart. I mean, it's there. It's in the community. So how do I get to own that? Like a lot of people I find have a stigma about it until they get inside. And I love the opportunity to present a brand to somebody who's like, oh, I don't think I'm interested in that. And I say, really? Why? And they have some assumption, oh, nobody gets their haircut there. Why? Because you don't? Okay, but so what if I told you that it's a 30-year-old brand with a 98% success rate? Only 2% of their stores have failed in 30 years. What if I told you that the average owner owns 6 stores, maintains a corporate job, and only manages 1 or 2 managers to maintain on average 6 stores? Does the story start to sound more compelling? Well, of course it does. Well, now tell me how much money you can make. Well, I can't do that. It's not my job. But that's the kind of shift I want to give people in their thinking, to kind of like bring them ideas that they may trip over on their own or never consider on their own, because I don't know anything about cutting hair, or I don't know anything about changing oil, or I don't know anything about massage. Well, you don't need to, right? I want to know what you're using the business for. And if you are a conservative investor and you want something that has more solidarity to it, that no matter what's happening in the world is going to be needed, there are those brands out there like Supercuts, and there's plenty of other ones like it, right, that I can bring to you. But if on the flip side, that sounds boring to you, right? You're like, I like that kind of like being on the back of a motorcycle without a helmet, driving 70 miles an hour. Like I want it fast. I want to go hard. I want to build up, 3 or 5 locations in 3 or 5 years, and then I want to exit. Well, you don't want Supercuts because that's the slow and steady, that's the cruising in the middle lane at 50 mile an hour in a Suburban. You need something that's more of a rocket ship, maybe it is fitness, or maybe it is something that has a little bit of that trendiness to it, that some people would say, well, what if the trend goes, down? It's like, well, that doesn't mean that in the moment the trend is going up, people aren't making a lot of money. It all comes back to you, the investor, what you're using this investment for, and in what time frame you want to get in and get out. And I coach all of my people to an exit strategy. I just feel like 10 years is like a good amount of time. And if you have a shorter window, like I think 5 is probably at the lower end, 5-7 years. But if you get there and you're like, hey, I'm having the time of my life, like me with my franchise. I mean, I'm in it now for 20 years. Who knew? But I've never gotten bored. I've never wanted to get out. So, okay, it's a win in my mind. But if you plan to get into something and say, well, this has to be the thing I do for the next 15 years, Mo, that's almost like telling my teenage kids or your kids to, graduate from college with a degree and go work for a pension. Like it doesn't exist. Don't put that much weight on the decision. Just get in, create a timeline for yourself of a maximum of 10 years. If you get to 10 years like me and you're having a blast, keep going. It's a win. But if you get to 7 or 8 years and you're feeling like, you know what, I'm a little tired of these challenges. I'm a little bit ready to I see the industry different now. I've gone through cycles. I'm ready to move on. It's still a win because you planned to build it and sell it. You get it?
Oh, totally, totally. Beautifully said. And I didn't know that Supercuts only had a 2% failure rate. I mean, and you're right. It's like sometimes we get caught up in our own thinking where it's like, well, I don't go there. I don't use
Right.
that service. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, of the,
Somebody's not going there.
300 and almost 50 million people we have in this country don't utilize that service or have a need for it.
Right.
And so it's always good to kind of hear some of the points that you were making, because we get caught up in the whole like, well, I only go there, I only do this. And so then we start to think like, well, just because we only do that no one else does it either. So those are great points.
Oh, there's another business that I love to kind of lay on my executive men. It really gets to that point of, kind of like getting around our own assumptions and limitations that we impose so unnecessarily. And it's just the fun part of my job. I certainly don't judge anybody. Like you do not have to look at any company, but if you're asking me to help you, I'm like, just go on. I call it a blind date. The first call with the franchisor, just go on the blind date. Like, what do you have to lose? Like, what if you hear something from the franchisor, like a 2% failure rate over 30 years, that you go, wow, like, and all of a sudden, like, something becomes more attractive to you about the brand that you had this preconceived notion about, right? So now on that 2% failure rate, they don't let you fail. So it's not that every owner in there is like they're so amazing that they don't let you fail. What that means is that you're not going to lose your shirt. It's still a good thing, but like they're either going to reabsorb your business as a company store if you're failing in the business after they've tried to help and train you and get your ship turned around, or they're going to ask you to raise your hand and they're going to come to me and say, hey, we have a resale, and they're going to try to help you move on again. But either way, it's a good thing for you because it means you're not going to lose everything and go bankrupt. They don't want those failures on their books, because by law in that franchise disclosure document, they do have to disclose that failure rate in there.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So it's in their best interest to help you out and do whatever they can to assist.
Oh, 100%. Yes, 100%. That franchise disclosure document really entitles you, the potential investor, to full disclosure. I mean, even prior bankruptcies by the executives in the company have to be disclosed in there. If the franchisor has ever been sued, if there's ever been a class action lawsuit, or if the franchisor has ever sued a franchisee, because that sometimes happens too for non-compliance. It's in there. They have to show 5 years of data. So, I mean, anything you're obligated to pay, any fee, all of those fees your friend was paying, he knew it up front. There's no hidden fees. They can't just slap on a fee. It's all laid out in that disclosure document. And that part of the coaching I do is to walk people through that. But I was making a different point before I wanted to say that 2% failure rate. What was I going to say to you, Mo? It was something so juicy. Oh, bummer.
If it comes back to you, interject and bring it up.
Okay.
Uh, you've kind of
It
touched
had
upon.
something about to do with the preconceived notions of a brand. So yeah, let me try to come back to it. Go ahead. What's your next
Definitely,
question?
definitely. If it comes back to you, bring it up, please. Uh, and so you touched upon this already, kind of like during the conversation, but I don't know if you have maybe a method or you have something that you walk people through, but how do you really select, let's say, the right, and maybe there's no, I don't such thing as perfect, but let's say the most beneficial or the most advantageous franchise for someone based on their background, their interests, their finances. And I know you've kind of talked about this as well too, their life goals and where they want to be in the life cycle of the business and how much do they want to pioneer, let's say, and how do you kind of bring all this stuff together and figure out for somebody like, you know what, I think that maybe this or maybe these group of, franchisors, maybe like, what would work out pretty well for you?
Well, like I said, I mean, that is my part of the equation. If you were trying to do that on your own, I think that the question is, how do you do that? Because with no frame of reference for who's who and what's what, and even how to think about this investment, I think that's why it's such a daunting task. But when you come to me, I have a formula. I have a path that's been very well traveled. I've marched thousands of people down this path over the last 20 years and seen when it didn't work and when it did work and refined it. So I know how to do this. It's what I do every day for people. So I just and I but I'll say to people, my way is not the only way. And if there's a business that you like that I know nothing about, but you want to explore it, absolutely bring it to the floor. Like we will hold that franchisor to the same standard that we hold the ones that I bring. I'm going to bring you what I know are A+ franchisors with strong back end systems and proven toolboxes and great validation by their existing franchise owners. But if you have an idea that you like, bring it. And then as you go on the dates with my franchisors and you date this franchisor, you can compare and contrast. In fact, I have a lovely couple from Southeastern United States at Discovery Day this week who came to me very, very sure that they were ready to invest in a fitness brand. And so they wanted me to get them up to speed with what I knew about franchising and some ideas so that they could quickly, be equal with what they knew about this particular fitness franchisor. And I love fitness, so I was like, okay, let's do this. And so the long story short is they are at Discovery Day this week for an outdoor lighting company. The fitness thing went away pretty quickly. I was even shocked at how quickly, like once they understood the limitations of the model that they had built for themselves and contrasted that to the goals and dreams worksheet that I had them fill out before we started talking about any franchises and I started commenting on anything they were looking at, right? I said, first, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this business as a vehicle. So who are you personally, professionally, and financially, and where are you trying to get? And what's the time frame? So that was numero uno was, and then when they got into the process with the other franchisors that I presented that matched their goals, that were aligned with the skills they had to drive a prospecting plan. They're both amazingly good, like networkers and prospectors, and they enjoy a high level of engagement with their business owners, but they wanted a more Monday through Friday work week. And so when I was able to align a territory-based franchise that did not have the limitation that four walls of a gym would create, and don't get me wrong, I love gyms. I love things with brick and mortar, but brick and mortar is a different investment used by a different type of an investor for a different outcome than they were telling me they are looking for. So once they saw how to really consider it, the fitness thing went away in a shocking amount of time. I was even a little bit scared, like, guys, you came to me really, really sure that this is what you wanted to do. So like go a little bit slower, but there was no stopping them. They were like, nope, they eliminated that and marched head on toward this new young franchise owner for that's going to allow them to have a much greater area. They live in Charleston, and they could go all the way over to Hilton Head with this and own like this really great real estate for an outdoor lighting company, compared to just one or two or even three locations of fitness, which would keep them kind of landlocked into where, the zip codes right around where they live. So it went in a really good way for them. And to answer your question, how do I do it? I just do it. I have a lot of experience and knowledge, and it's what I'm trained to do. It's my business.
Well said. Beautiful. It's when you help people like that kind of reach that aha moment where like they thought one thing and then all of a sudden it's transitioned to something completely different. That
It's so gratifying, Mo. And you know what I'll say? I say this time and again, it's a testament, number one, to the people and their open mind, right? Fitness to outdoor lighting, it's a pretty big leap, right? So,
totally.
but because in my equation, what the business does matters so little. Right? I connected them to people that had a vision that they could buy into. I connected them to leaders that were able to show them with confidence how they were going to take a toolbox in an industry that they knew nothing about today, and they were going to get trained and they were going to be able to drive a multi-million-dollar business. So it was more about connecting them to, number one, their vision of what they're trying to accomplish, and then with people and leadership that had the tools that could validate it, right? And then it's just like, oh, and by the way, that's what the business does. What the business does becomes so almost irrelevant, so long as it aligns with like what the customer the franchise owner can eventually say, yeah, I can stand beside this. I don't, like, to the point we're making, I don't have to be the one who walks into Supercuts and get a haircut, but I see the value of what I'm offering in the community. And if you can make that and feel good about it, listen, I talk to some people who are like, hey, I grew up on a farm. Like, I don't care if I have to shovel, you know what? Like, if I can make money doing it, there's a lot of money in dirty jobs. So I get those people. And then I get people who are like, I like something a little bit sexier. I want to drive by the location and say, yeah, that's my store. Right. And that brings me back to, I just remembered what I wanted to say to you before. My executive men out there, another business that I love to surprise people with. So the setup would be sort of like, what if I told you I had a business that in good times and bad, the product or service is always wanted by its prime customer? What if I told you that you could open a store in as little as 1,000 square feet, with approximately 4 to maximum 6 employees from the beginning? So keeping your investment very minimized. What if I told you that this company has every KPI measured, like every KPI measured electronically? They have optimized the business during COVID. They've eliminated the need for a front desk person and one employee. So your customer can now check in from the convenience of their car and the cleanliness of their car without coming in and sitting in a waiting room. What if I told you that every KPI, like I said, can be measured through the technology? And what if I told you that this business was in a beauty space? So the executive man might be like, beauty, like, and I'll give a specific example. Like, I work with a business that does so everything that the mask doesn't cover, your eyes. So this is a woman's business: eyelash extensions, eyebrow tinting, waxing, all the things that make us women beautiful, right? So a guy's like, I don't know anything about this. Maybe he knows that his wife or his girlfriend or his daughter spend money on it, but he knows nothing about it as a business owner. But he can pretty quickly ask some of the women in his life, about the value of this, and probably get a huge, oh my God, let's own one of those by every woman, right? And so, but then when he gets in to meet the CEO and founder of the franchise, because he will get direct access, he sees this artificial intelligence that's been created. So they now have a bot that can answer like almost every question. So they don't have to have a front desk person. So the business model gets optimized. You don't have minimum wage employees. You have people that went to beauty school, have a license in some beauty category. They're very passionate about what they do and helping women feel confident about their look. And then all of those key performance indicators are measured through the technology. So while you're at your desk at JP Morgan for the day working, right? You can check into your intranet and you can see how many memberships were sold, how many, new direct mail pieces went out, or how many people clicked on your website, how many new appointments were booked at 2 a.m. That's one of the statistics that this particular franchisor loves to, like, how many women are laying in bed at night, can't sleep, and they're booking their eyelash appointments. Like, they know this kind of data about their users. So what happens is it takes a beauty brand that the executive guy knows nothing about, and it makes it real. It speaks it to him. It's very logical. So for the woman investor, it's more emotional. Oh, of course I want to own one. But to the guy, it becomes logical. And then he sees, wow, like in good times and bad, women, if we color our hair, listen, no matter what, we're coloring our hair. Right? So I may lose my job, but I'm not going to stop coloring my hair. There's a lot of money to be made in some of these spaces. So, and it's wrapped in a membership. So then you can have that predictable, scalable revenue, right? That allows you to put your head on your bed peacefully at night, not worried about the $25,000 a month in overhead you have, because with X number of membership that you already have, all of your bills are paid. The rest is gravy for the rest of the month.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. When you present it like that, that's just utterly amazing. That's amazing
Right.
to hear when you boil it down like that. And having all these metrics as well too, to kind of see where you are, and having everything to like a granular level, I guess, makes it more comfortable. Well, I would think would make it more comfortable for someone to want to get involved in the business. Like you said, they probably have no idea what it does, or have no use for it themselves personally. And it just kind of gives you that added comfort level to get involved and to dive in.
Yeah, there's so many ways to make money in this world, Mo, like for real. Like one of my favorite little businesses right now is a business. It's a total niche. All they do is paint lines in parking lots. That's it. Because the big asphalt people, that's like a job they don't want to come back and do. They want to take their steamroller and they want to roll asphalt. They don't want to come back and paint the lines after they've, laid new tar. So who's doing that? This little franchise comes in, it's B2B, reoccurring revenue. It's long-term sustainable. It's never going to become obsolete, I guess, unless they come up with some permanent line, paint, but it gets weathered. But like for the perceived value of an apartment or a bank or a school or a grocery store or whatever the business is, right? The perceived value and the safety value of having those lines in the parking lot, that's all they do. High ticket item, reoccurring revenue, B2B, Monday through Friday, no big equipment. You're not going to have to worry about having the liability of somebody driving one of those big, steamroller things like to roll the asphalt. It's a small little thing. Like it looks like something that somebody who's walking on my lawn to like spray weed, for weeds on my lawn. The machine looks exactly like that. And you
Wow.
just walk behind
Amazing.
it and you paint lines.
Amazing. That's not something that would never guess that there was actually, you could buy a franchise business doing something like that. So
When you see the earnings claim they make, you would be like, holy, and like that's what gets people excited. I don't make any earnings claims. I just say, trust me, go on the blind date, get to the point where they can open up their unit economics to you and show you how profitable this is. And then if you're not excited, we'll put it, we'll put it off to the side. But there's some things out there in these niche spaces that, people think franchising, they think food, they think retail. I'm over here as one of America's top franchise consultants, and I don't place people into those. I like the niches. There's more money to be made. There's less fixed costs, higher margins, simpler businesses, better quality of life. Have I said anything that haven't caught all of you out
I'm
there going, what
I'm
does she know?
sold. I'm sold. I'm sold on it. You've got me. Uh, in addition to working with clients, you've also written a book called Franchising Freedom.
Yeah.
What motivated you to write the book? And I can only guess what the book is about as well too, but I just kind of like to hear kind of your motivations for writing the book. And
Oh, Mo, this book story is a really fascinating story that kind of takes me really to the sweet spot of my life, which is mindset coaching. So I'm a co-author of that international best-selling book. So the story goes like this. I follow a motivational speaker who was talking about making declaration statements about the importance of the words that we use speaking life into our life. So I said, okay, like I'm going to try this. I still do this today. Declaration statements absolutely work. But this was back in 2019. And so I declared I wanted to write a book. And I was like, I'm never going to get motivated to write a book. How do I motivate myself? So I'm going to declare it. I'm going to see if I can motivate myself by saying it to myself every day that I am a published author. So as I was writing the declaration statement, a published author and like a New York Times, I'm like, I don't even like the New York Times, so I don't do that. Like, but when I wrote, I am an international best-selling author, I'm like, yeah, that sounds big enough for Kim Daly. So I'm like, I haven't even written a book, Mo, and I'm already declaring that I'm an international. It's like a little arrogant, but really, like, so I wrote it. So for the entire year, I come to my 2019. I still make obviously the declarations. I do it every day. When I come to my office, before I get on the phone, I just declare a few things that put me in a powerful state, make me feel abundant, make me feel alive. And one of them for 2019 was I am an international best-selling author. So at the end of 2019, when I hadn't written a book, I wasn't motivated to do it yet. I said, okay, that one didn't make the list for 2020. But here's the thing. The momentum was already underway. In July of 2020, a publisher from the UK reached out to me and said, hey, Kim, we're putting authors together to co-author a book. We'd like you to participate. Would you do it? I almost said no, Mo. We just built a pool and it was July. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to be wasting my time, doing this. Like, I think I'd rather be outside with my kids in the pool. But I said, one chapter. Okay, fine. And I'm not connecting it to my declarations in any way. So when Andrew, the publisher, and I get back on the phone, we decided to Zoom. He's in the UK. So we did a Zoom and we were getting logistically organized on everything we were going to do to promote the book and all this. And at the end of the call, he said to me, Kim, I just want you to get excited and get ready because every book that we publish goes on to become an international best-selling book. And Mo, this was I have several moments in my life that will never, ever, ever leave me. This is one of those moments. I was so like caught off guard. I sat in my chair. I was laughing so hard that the tears were like right here. And this poor guy's like, what the hell's the matter with this lady, So I had to tell him about my declaration statements. And then we both had this like, oh my God moment together. So we have this thing because he literally watched my like physical and emotional reaction to literally how what you declare over your life, you will make true. So I am an international best-selling author. I contributed one chapter, and guess what that chapter was on? Mindset. And this was before the book even became an international bestseller, but that is my story of becoming an international best-selling author. And to which Andrew said, when you get ready to write the book about the story of writing a book that went on to become an international bestseller, he wants to publish it for me.
oh, beautiful, beautiful. And congratulations on being an international best-selling author.
Without even having to write a damn book.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I'm so
Isn't
happy
that funny?
and I'm so happy for
Yeah.
you as well too. And the declarations and the mindset are actually we can have a whole nother discussion even on that. And I know that our time today is fairly limited, but one of the things that I've had guests on this show as well too is about mindset, goal setting, overcoming self-imposed barriers, for example, and so it's very refreshing to hear you kind of talk about that as well too. That really ties into why some people may not be or reach the success or reach the goals that they obtain to or want to reach, and it's amazing how.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
A franchisor can have the best business plan with the best toolbox, but a franchisor can't make you a millionaire or a top performer, right? It's what you bring with your actions, your attitude, your follow through, your execution, right? That will determine whether you are successful and the extent to which you are successful, which is why, when people like, if franchising is so good, then why do people fail? Because it's not on the franchisor to make you successful. They're going to do everything in their power if they're a good franchisor. But ultimately, it goes back like when I was a personal trainer in the gym, right? It goes back to you got to show up and you got to do the work. I can't make your body change. I can't control what you're putting in your mouth, right? I can provide the best tools, but you have to do the work. And that's the same analogy in a franchise.
Definitely. Well said. Well said. Everything can be there for you. All the the KPIs and a process and a method that you just need to basically follow and add your own heart and energy to it. But if the mind gets in the way, and it's amazing how many times people probably don't even realize that it's their own thoughts and they themselves that have stopped them from obtaining some goal of financial freedom or being successful in their franchise or the passive investing to a certain point. And then how to bring this all together as well too. It's anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. And in fact, if you ever want to come on again, just even talk about mindset, I'd love to have you on, because that's a very big component of this show as well too, is the fact that we can find great investments, we can find great people to partner with and to do a lot of amazing things with. But if we don't have the right attitude and mindset, then a lot of that the chances of success can go down pretty dramatically. And that's it's one of the things that I really like to harp on and bring up. So anyway, without going off on a tangent, thank you for bringing that up and just kind of allowing us to kind of add that to the discussion that we already had today. But Kim, how can people find out more about you? And if you all maybe you want to talk about maybe your book and any other resources that people can go to get in touch with you or to find out more about franchising?
Yes, the best place to go is my YouTube channel, kimdaly.tv. My last name is Daly. So we've been when the doors closed for every business in 2020, we all had to adapt. I could no longer get on an airplane and fly and bring people together to teach them about franchising. I had to adapt or die. And literally, Mo, this adaptation is probably the single greatest, most fun thing I've ever done professionally. So please humor me and check out kimdaly.tv. I'm having way too much fun making these videos. And we just hit a milestone on Friday, 250 uploads in about a little less than 10 months. So we have a lot of content on all things franchising, investing, mindset coaching, business coaching. Please check it out. And then from there, if you want to inquire further, all of my contact information is, of course, on kimdaly.tv.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. And we're going to include, links to these as well too in the show notes. But Kim, thank you for coming on to the show today. You provided an amazing amount of value and also energy and passion as well too. You're definitely one of the most, energetic people that I've come across in a while. And, I think you just kind of really instill like that motivation and really get those juices going for the people that you work with. And it demonstrates itself, nicely.
Thank you, Mo. My pleasure. My pleasure to share it. I really would love to help anybody who has the dream to even learn. You don't have to know that franchising is the right thing for you. In fact, when you come to me, I hope that you don't. I want an opportunity to educate you. I think saying yes to a franchise is the logical thing that happens when you've asked enough of the right questions and enough of the answers satisfy you, because nothing's going to be perfect, right? There's always going to be something that you have to go, I wish that was a little different, right? But it's like finding that thing that has enough yeses that aligns with what you're trying to use the business for. That's when you'll know that you're ready to say yes to the franchise dream. So
Awesome. Kim, thank you again for coming on the show today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And if you found this podcast insightful, please leave a 5-star review. And until next time, have a great week.